This is Mission Transition, a podcast powered by Still Serving Veterans. Here, those who've served open up about what comes after the military, the questions, the breakthroughs, and the lessons learned. Because transition isn't the end of the mission, it's the beginning of the next one.
Hey, my name is Corey Hopkins. I'm here with Still Serving Veterans with Mission Transition Podcast. I'm a retired Army officer I was a medic for a while and then transitioned to artillery. I've been with Still Serving Veterans for about 7, 8 months now. And we are kicking off our podcast to help highlight our veterans that we help and see how we can help you in your transition, whether it be currently transition out of the military or out of the military. So today we have Mr. Mike Davenport. He's a retired brigadier general of the National Guard, and we will be discussing his transition, his thoughts, and see how we go from there. So welcome to the podcast, Mike.
Good morning, Corey. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, no, we appreciate you having your time here with us. So just to kick it off, tell us a little bit about your background, your career, what's going on, what happened with that.
Well, one of those guys that I joined in high school. So I joined the delayed entry program back in 1991, which doesn't seem like so long ago in my mind. But in my senior year, I decided to join up. I came in as an E1. I actually started my career as a Navy reservist in CBs. I did about 6 years with those guys, and I had a lot of friends and family that were in the Alabama National Guard. So they talked me into coming over and transition when I finished my initial enlistment. When I got to the Alabama National Guard, I was working on the M1A1 tanks for about a year or so. And then they convinced me to go to officer candidate school. So I went through the Alabama Military Academy, got my commission, and started my career as a field artillery officer also.
Nice.
Did that for about a year or two. And then, as we all know, with restructuring and units changing, our unit changed to a CBURN unit, and we became a CBURN battalion. And at that point, I was still doing civilian work. I was just doing 1 weekend a month, and I had a career outside of the everyday life of the military, but I really enjoyed it. And at some point, I was able to get an opportunity to come in and work for the Guard full time. That was around 2003. So I joined full time with the Guard. I was a second lieutenant at the time, and I had begun my conversion. Actually, I take that back. I was a first lieutenant, and I started my conversion to the CBURN Corps. So I was having to reclass, and as we stood up the CBURN Brigade battalions, we had 4 battalions. So it was a pretty big change for us here in the state of Alabama. And I was fortunate enough to get in on that. I worked as a technician for a little bit. And then somehow or another, my career we ended up deploying to Afghanistan in 2004 and 2005, doing an infantry mission of all things as a CBURN battalion and a CBURN company, doing force protection. So I spent a year there, came back, and eventually made my way up to the brigade headquarters. Was promoted to major. I had served as a company commander for the 208 CBURN company. Became the operations and training officer for the 31st CBURN Brigade. Did a bunch of different missions. Had a great time doing that. Eventually was selected to command the 145th CBURN Battalion. And at that point, they moved me to Montgomery because in the AGR world, you can have 2 jobs just like everybody else does. So I worked and I moved to the Domestic Operations Center, working as the J3 for the state in the operations cell for a few years. Completed my battalion command time and then became strictly the Dom Ops J3. And towards the end of my career, I was given the greatest opportunity of all, which was to go back to the brigade I grew up in and actually become the brigade commander. That was probably one of my highlights of my career, was getting to command the brigade that I grew up in from enlisted. When I was enlisted as a tanker, we were also under the same brigade. So to go from being enlisted to a company commander, battalion commander, and eventually become a
Yes.
brigade commander was probably one of my highlights of my career. The second part of that would be that I also was fortunate enough that our tag at the time wanted to establish the joint staff. So that was one of my other projects, myself and several other officers. We spent about 3 to 5 years just researching, putting it together, and then I was given the opportunity to be the first Joint Chief of Staff for the state of Alabama. So I've been
Wow.
very fortunate in my career. A
Yeah.
lot of hard work, but a lot of good people have. I always give credit where it's due. Can't do anything without it being part of a team, you know.
Sure.
And that's probably what I missed the most already.
Right.
Being out,
Right.
having those people around me every day. It's a little bit different
Having those
being out.
resources for sure.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
So what originally you're joined at a pretty young age. What was that motivation? Did you have family members that served, or what was that at 17, 18 years old saying, "Hey, I'm going to make this commitment."
Well, originally my grandfather was a World War II vet. He served in the Pacific campaign and was injured there and came home. So he was a very big influence in my life. And so when I was growing up, just knowing that he had served there and done those things. My father was also in the Army for a short period of time. I had an uncle who was a Marine, another uncle who was who ended up retiring as a sergeant major in the Air Force. So had a lot of family in it,
Nice.
but all
Hmm.
of them were enlisted, and most of them, most of them just did it for a short period of time and then got out. My two uncles did retire, but then when my senior year, I just needed some structure, and I was encouraged to. Go ahead. If I love the military, I always wanted to do it, but I needed some structure in my life. I wasn't exactly the best student or the best kid, and the military has given me an opportunity to correct those things.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And that was kind of the same for me. My dad was a retired first sergeant, and then so when I actually enlisted out after I graduated from University of Alabama, and same thing, I didn't know what the hell I wanted to do, see what was going on. So I joined enlisted in the Army to get that structure and that direction, purpose, motivation, and direction. So we
That's
kind of
right.
share the same thing. Yeah. What tell us about your transition. What got you to want to transition? Not necessarily want to transition, but that key decision of like, now I'm gonna, been serving for how long did you serve?
So I just retired in May of 2025. I ended up doing a little over 34 years total
Wow.
service.
Wow.
So it's funny because when I first joined, I wanted to do 6 years, get the structure, get the college, and then I was out. And then
Right.
like everything, there's a hook in it, and I just loved it and decided to stay. Towards the end of my career, actually, I had kind of looked at doing some other things, going some other places outside of the state. There were some opportunities, but in towards the latter part of my career in 2018 and 2019, I'd come down with cancer, and I
Mm,
beat it. Been 6 years cancer free, but
congratulations.
the treatments and the things. Eventually, it's the cumulative damage started to wear, and I got to the point where I became no longer worldwide deployable. And when I
Mm,
realized I couldn't deploy, I couldn't do these things,
mhm.
I had to make a choice. And the military, taking care of me, they just said, "Hey, we need to do a med board on you
Right.
with some of your conditions," and it worked out. I was fortunate enough, I was blessed to be able to have good people around me who looked at my case, looked at the things, and kind of guided me and set my expectations. I knew early on in the process that I was not going to be retained, and it kind of afforded me the opportunity going through it to mentally begin that preparation for
Right.
what's next. You know.
Right. And that part about that mental transition of what was next, what do you find kind of the hardest part and also the easiest part about that transition of that because you've been donning the uniform for 30 plus years,
Yeah.
you're soldier through and through, and then be able to say, okay, now I'm going to hang it up.
I think the hardest part. it's there's a few things with it. First one is just accepting that I'm not a spring chicken anymore, and that this medical board, just because they find the things they find, it doesn't mean it's the end of the line for me as a person. It just means that I no
Right.
longer possess the capabilities to wear the uniform, to do that. And that's a little bit of hit of your pride, especially when you spent your
Yeah.
whole career just driving forward, driving forward, and driving forward, like we all do. All military members,
Sure.
you sometimes you tuck some of those injuries away in your rucksack, and then later on they always find their way out. And so that was the hard part, is realizing that even though I can't continue to serve, I can continue to do other things.
Right.
I'm not broken. I'm not completely without. So that was a hard part for me. Um, the easier part was, to me, was just looking forward to opportunities. I adapted a mentality of, man, look at what there is available. All this time I'm getting back, all these things. To me, I had to take a very opportunistic mental approach. And once I
Hmm.
took that
Hmm.
mental approach, it became a little easier. Now, like with everybody, there's times where I miss my people, and I'm still in touch with them. I try and
Sure.
keep in touch with all the people that have helped me, and check in and see how they're doing, and they check in on me, because the military is a family. It's not just people you work with. It's
Right.
it's not like any other thing. These are people you spend majority. You probably most time you spend more time with them than you do your actual family.
Sure.
So
That's right.
um, but that is a little hard, not having them around sometimes, but they're always just phone call away, which is kind of neat. Um, but yeah, just the opportunities. I love that. I love having those. But my wife, luckily, has kept me grounded, because one of the things that I try and caution some of my friends who are also, because we're all about the same age or getting ready to retire, is you don't have to do it all at once. I tried to
Mm.
make up for 34 years of lost time in 6 months, and I was killing myself. I was trying to
Yeah.
do four things a day, and she's like, "You got all this time, pace yourself." So
Right.
that was a little hard for me to do, because we run that daily. Get up 5:30, go, come home, get ready. Tomorrow's another day. Here's what I got to get done, and get up and go do it again. And it's definitely a transition to not have that cemented schedule, and that
Right.
training schedule driving your daily events.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's a lot of times we will tell our veterans that are, transitioned out. They're kind of, you have that structure from 5:30 to, you know, 05:30 to 17:30, 1800 every day, to create that structure in their life, as far as
Yeah.
getting a calendar, applying for jobs, getting in contact with organizations like SSV,
Hmm.
and really kind of make, we have a saying around here saying, make looking for a job your new job. So that means,
that, there's a lot of truth in that.
right, exactly. So I mean, you wake up at 09, whatever you got to do, start putting in applications, update your LinkedIn profile, be in contact with your counselor, all those kind of things that really, because I know for me, when retired out of the Army, that was the biggest thing, the structure part of it, having been able to know what I'm going to do for the next, we, in the military, they tell you to write out your career timeline. So we knew what we were supposed to be doing 20 years from now,
Yeah.
to hit certain benchmarks and do certain things and take certain jobs. And now you don't have that anymore. And what the heck am I going to do now? So, yeah, I can definitely feel you on wanting to take advantage of the opportunities that you had. So, talk to us a little bit more about that. How the military set you up with take creating opportunities, and what opportunities are you looking forward to taking advantage of?
Well, the first thing you just said, it is the structure. So, I would encourage people, stay fit, stay fit. That's the one thing.
Mm,
I've
mm,
seen too many of my friends that get out. I don't have PT anymore, and I still get up in the morning at least 3 days a week. I get up 5, go PT. Leave to go PT at 5:30, and PT in the mornings.
right.
It helps me start my day just like it always did with the military. So keeping some
Yep.
form of that structure, it mentally helps you keep into that routine. And I would encourage you, don't get out of that routine. Stay in it. Not saying that you got to get up and drive yourself like every day, but I'm just saying keep some sort of that. Keep yourself physically fit because
Right.
you earned it, and you got to figure out that physical pace that works for you. So that's something that the military really kind of put into it. The other thing is as we went through the process where you assisted me, personally in getting my resume and all my stuff prepared for what I have next, don't sell yourself short. You did a
Hmm.
lot of things. A
Hmm.
lot of times people don't realize that even a squad leader today would be a floor manager on
Right.
most companies. You're responsible for, 6 individuals to 8 individuals, team, especially gets to platoon sergeant level, and then look at the accountability of equipment and all that stuff.
Hmm.
Take that and turn it into
Yep.
um, money, leadership. I was responsible for X number of personnel, X number of equipment with a value of whatever. You plan the training, you plan the support. You're a counselor to those people at times. You're an advisor. All of those things that you've done in the military, they're credible. And
Right.
sometimes people were like they get focused on their MOS. I mean, we all
Mm.
train, we all look at, hey, if you're a 42 alpha, you're an admin person, and your job is to do this, and you focus on those administrative actions. But a lot of time you're a section leader, and
Right.
don't forget the other tangible things that you don't even think of. And that's where working with you kind of helped me. At my rank, it's pretty easy to be a project manager and things like that. But my personal traits, the things that I
Mm.
can bring that come into my resume, that I'm dedicated, I'm structured, I have a willingness to learn because I've constantly gone through additional schools throughout my career. I'm driven. Those are things that all people in the military have, regardless of rank, and you got to capitalize that and just put it at whatever level of responsibility you had.
Yeah, 100%. Well, that's one of the things we try to really focus in on it. And I get a lot of feedback from people that I work with is, how do I make my military jargon into civilian or what would appeal to a civilian? So we really try to concentrate on that, helping out with that transition and be able to civilianize the duties that you said, because you're right, a squad leader, they are in charge. That's a mid-level management job, that they had responsibilities, they had to be accountable for x amount of equipment. So that definitely um, was uh, a key part of what we do here at SSB is help that transition and help out with that resume. And we can do lots of different things with interview prep and LinkedIn. Is your LinkedIn good to go, sir?
Oh man, my LinkedIn, I'm telling you, after we changed that, and we went in and redid all my stuff, and you helped me do that. If I don't get 5 LinkedIn messages a day, it's like, hey, we'd love to hire you. Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, now I'm getting it's a little more selective. So it really
Yeah.
is. It does. Because before it looked like your typical military profile,
Right.
yeah, so being able to redo that and walk through not just with the resume but with your LinkedIn, the things that are sending the message looking forward.
Hmm.
For military guys that haven't transitioned yet, I would just tell you your LinkedIn is kind of like your ERB. That's it. I hate
100%.
to say it that way, but it's
100%.
like your
Yeah,
ORB or your ERB. That's the first
exactly.
thing people see when they're going to interview you.
Yep, that's what one of the things that we really focus in on is because a lot of times people will set up a LinkedIn and they just kind of forget about it, particularly if they're
Yeah,
in the military because they don't think they need it. So
yeah,
now all of a sudden, like, hey, where's your LinkedIn profile? That sometimes they have a hard time remembering their passwords, all kinds of
yeah,
different things. So I always say you're right. It's a ERB or ORB of what you're, what you're about and that kind of stuff and being active on it. I think it's also a great place to find resources of like being able to make those connections that help to transition to help that
yes.
get job. So could you talk to us a little bit about the importance of creating connections, keeping up with people, checking in with your peers, that kind of thing?
Well, I would just tell you that every opportunity I've seen so far, that's a real legitimate opportunity. It's come from people that I know. These are people I
Mm-hmm.
worked for years ago. These are retired generals, retired colonels, but not only that. I mean, I got a retired master sergeant that owns his own business, and
Nice.
uh, you've made a lifetime of connections, and those people, some of them have gotten out before you. Anyone who's gotten out before you, um, just reach out to them. Say, hey, what are you doing? How do you do this? I've got friends that work for Alabama or Southern Company, which used to be Alabama Power. I've got friends that work at the Alabama EMA. I've got friends that work in all kinds of industries. A lot of them work, in Alabama. We're fortunate we got Huntsville Space and Rocket Center, so we got a lot of people there's a lot of military up there as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But those guys have really helped. But in the same note, when you figure out what you do, it's incumbent upon you to reach back to those who are following you. I try really hard. I've got three of my very close friends, one sergeant major, one E7, and then one potential officer who are just trying to go through the phases right now of um, you know, do I get out? I'm at the
Right.
point where I can, what do I expect? And I just try and reach back and say, hey, look, if you're going through the medical process, this is what to expect. And because really no one did that. I didn't have anybody specifically to walk me through the process because um, it's very ambiguous. I mean, it's hard to follow, and you constantly got to be your own champion as you go
Right.
through that. And I will tell you, reaching out to the people who are already on the other side or who have similar experiences, it's invaluable. The connections you've made through the military, and it may be somebody. I've got a friend from another state that I've
Right.
reached out to, and they wish you well. And if you work with them, then awesome. Don't overlook those
Right.
friendships.
And could you speak a little bit more about that? What would you do if you could go back and do anything different with your transition? What advice would you give to somebody that's either been in 4 years or they're getting ready to retire? Get like a timeline of when they would start their process of transitioning. What resources would you reach out to? Kind of walk that through. What would be your advice of if you're going to sit somebody down and say, "Hey, do these things"? What
Yeah.
would those be?
So I would tell you, if you're going through any kind of VA process or medical process, you need to start early. It takes, they'll tell you it's going to be 180 days, and I can tell you, it's no fault of theirs. I'm not being negative, but like with my case, it was very complex. And they had me some initial paperwork in 180 days, but I started my process in June, and my final date June of 2024. And
Mm,
even with a pretty cut and dry case, I didn't get out till May 15th. Now, you
right.
also have your transition leave. You have those. I would tell you that you really need to make sure you are paying attention to your administrative, talk to
Mm,
your human resources and your admin personnel because you need to be keeping up with your leave. I wish I would have done a better
mhm.
job at managing my leave and my transition leave.
Right,
As far as outside resources go, you can't get too far down with the VA because they're part of the process of getting you access to what things they can do. But companies like places like Still Serving Veterans, anything that reaches out that you can go ahead and get. Um, I wish I would have probably done my resume a lot sooner.
mm,
I waited a little bit because I was trying to get my last. I'm so military oriented that I was like, I got to have my OER. I got to have my last OER to kind of get you that information. And you kept telling me, sir, we don't need that. And I was like, well, I know, but that's where we think. We
yeah,
think
yeah,
everything we've done has been
that's
based
right,
off of those ratings and those
exactly,
things, and you don't need that. You just need to.
right,
I just needed to tell you what I did and put it in a narrative form. It doesn't matter what somebody else's opinion of me was
right,
from my ORB. You're focusing on what I did and what my accomplishments were. And I wish I would have done that a little bit sooner. So getting to work on your resume, getting in touch with you guys so that y'all can help set up with your LinkedIn because I didn't complete all of that until 2 weeks after my final retirement in the beginning
Right.
of June. And then once you get into that, now you're in the active process of doing that, and you're almost like building the ship while you're trying to you set
Right.
sail.
Right.
I wish I would have done those things beforehand. The other thing I would say is expectation management.
Mm,
Don't I don't get wrapped up in trying to figure out. I know we all want to know, well, what are my benefits? How much am I going to make? All this. What I would tell you is figure out where you're at, what you need, and then start looking for, if I want to work, what kind of work do I want to do? And then if
right.
whatever the military gives you for your separation, for your retirement, for your medical disabilities or VA or whatever that is, you're not dependent upon it. Because
Mm,
being dependent upon that, to me, is a scary thing when something is
right.
taken away. That's your safety net. And if
Right.
you have nothing else, when that safety net's gone, it can cause a lot of anxiety and stress. So figure it out and then let that safety net come in behind. I think that would probably be one of the things too, because I stressed just like every other human being. I've got two kids still at home, and I'm married, and got one kid outside the home. So I'm just like, I'm trying to make sure I can take care of my
Right.
family, because that's what I've done. But I've stressed myself a little too much in worrying about things that I can't control instead of focusing on what I could control, such as the
Right.
resumes and job hunts, and start looking for that beforehand, because those are the things that I can control to make myself and my transition a lot better.
Yeah, I think that backwards planning is so important too. Like you talk about that transition leave and kind of start mapping it out. I think a lot of times, if you're starting transition in May, that means you're backwards planning 2, 3 months before when you start that
Hmm.
transition leave. Like you said, get that resume started, start applying jobs 2, 3 months out before you even much less ETS or retire, but actually, when's the first day you're available to work, backwards plan off of that and get ahead of the game for that transition. Because what I noticed another thing too is, I thought I'm going to retire. I'm going to watch my tomatoes grow. That's the only thing I'm going to do. I'm just going to sit back, drink my sweet tea and do nothing but, just, you know, sit back on my laurels. And that lasted about a month, maybe 2 months of not having much to do, not having that purpose, not being able to have some place to go. Cause what the heck are you doing on a Tuesday at 10 o'clock, and when you're after you get out? So I think that that's key to think about when you make that transition is what's next, how to prepare for that. Like you said, sir, control the things that you control, and that's especially with the VA benefits and stuff. That's another thing we do here at SSB is we have VSOs that can help out with that
Hmm.
if you're in the Huntsville area. So that's another aspect of still serving veterans that we like to, we definitely part of the team. We're definitely more than just resume writing and
Oh yeah,
building LinkedIn and that kind of stuff. So we definitely have a wide net of things, services that we can provide.
yeah.
So
I would
what?
say I would say too, you brought up a great point, availability to work. If you do this beforehand, what I think would happen to me, and this kind of goes back to that, is, I took some time, taking time to kind of do
Yeah,
my to just enjoy some things. But it's kind of hard to do that when you're trying to play catch up with your resumes and, looking at the work. If you do that prior to or during your transition phase, and then you say, okay, I'm going to give myself 60 days, you can go start looking for work, and you can really take that 30, 40, 50, 60 days, whatever you want to take that you can afford to take. You can take those days and really enjoy them, and not say you're going to enjoy them, and then the whole time you're sitting there trying to do all those things you should have done in the transition. Does that make
right.
sense?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%, sir. So that's, I help out people that are a year out from
Mhm.
getting either retiring or that kind of stuff. So I was
Right.
saying, there's no defined time of when you can start your transition. Like I was saying, if somebody's getting out or retiring and within a year, that's not too soon to really start kind of mentally gaming. What am I going to do? Because how am I going to make this transition and and take advantage of some of the resources that the military has to offer? Because there are a lot.
Yes.
Sometimes I know when I was transitioning, it was almost when I went through the transition assistance program, the TAP. It was like, holy crap, I'm way behind the curve, and I was doing that 6, 7 months out. I mean, it was like I'm not doing enough.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a lot of things that are out
A
there
lot,
that
a lot.
you won't know about. And when you talk to other people, they may not have needed those things, so therefore they may not, they may not have that experience. That's why I said talking to multiple people, looking at
Right,
multiple resources, because they may not be in your situation where you want to go back to school, so they can't help you with education because they maybe didn't want to go back to school, or if they may
right,
not have kids and you may have kids, or there's just different scenarios. So kind of do some research, and talk to these organizations to give them your specific what's specifically going on with you and what your goals and objectives are, and let them help you. I think that's very critical.
right. And how so talking about your transition and stuff, how was it the family dynamics for somebody that's getting ready to get out? They're talking with their family, how's this gonna go? Because it is a very uncertain time of like, holy crap, I no longer have the safety net of the military. Talk to
Yeah.
us a little bit about the conversations you had with your family and how'd that go?
With my kids, it's a little easier. It's, I'm able to do more stuff with them. I got two teenage boys, so we've been able to go hunting and fishing and just do more things together. Um,
Right,
I would say for your spouse, it's a little different. You got to realize that while you've been gone and you've been doing all these things, your spouse has kept your home running. And
right.
when all of a sudden now you're in their workspace, just imagine if it was take your spouse to work day
Yeah.
every day, and your spouse was going to work with you. You're now the other person. So just remember that this has been their workspace. Give them their workspace. Don't come in. Don't change. See where you fit in. Set some rules. Set some boundaries to respect each other's time and respect each
Sure.
other. I think that's the key. Um, I've been in charge for a long time, and I'm not in charge here.
Yeah.
That's the rule. But it's awesome because you also uh, just talking to my wife and figuring out what do we want to do. Because it's always been us, but spouses have always supported your career. And
Right,
that's the thing is, when you're in the military, you're moving around, they go with you, they do those things. You don't have to completely like, okay, no, now it's up to you, because now you've actually put a lot on them when you try and make them, well, you support me forever. What do you want to do? Well, they may not
mhm,
be prepared to look at that.
right,
So you got to have an honest discussion of what do we want to do? It's got to be a we conversation.
right,
um, and that would just be my advice is don't think you're going to shuck all responsibilities and let them make all the decisions. And at the same time, don't think that you're going to come in and take all of them.
right,
It's a honest conversation about, where do you see yourselves? Because just like we did in the military, what do you see yourself in 5 years? What do you see yourself
right,
in 10 years? Well, now it's the same thing, but it's you and your spouse. My kids will be gone in 5 years. My two sons will be up and either off at college or whatever. So where do we see ourselves in 5 years, and what do we got to do to get there? I
right,
think that's the big thing.
for sure. And as we wrap it up, sir, so give us a little bit about what has still serving veterans provided for you and what would you say to the audience out there about how easy it is to get in contact with SSB,
Oh, yeah.
how those kind of things.
Well, man, I think you did a better effort than I did reaching out to me. Once we were initially connected, I would tell you, once you talk to someone from Still Serving Veterans, Corey here just kept in touch with me, and he kept sending reminders, and for once it didn't feel like, hey, he wanted something. He was like, hey, sir, we talked about this date. I'm just checking in to make sure you're still on track. So I appreciate that. That was one of the things that you guys did really well. You kept kind of sending me reminders, following up, asking those questions like, "Hey, where are you at on your process? Don't forget, I need your information for your to do your resume." You guys did a great job at that. You did a great job at tailoring my resume towards the type of work that I was looking at. And just, the LinkedIn, and that's just a few things that I've looked at. And I'm sure that there's other things. You mentioned the VSO as I'm going through. I'm still in the process. I received my VA finally yesterday, but that's 60 days later.
Nice.
But I'm still going through the DFAS process because of the
Mm,
VA. You still have to coordinate back through the DFAS, so it'll be August. I
wow.
retired May 15th. It'll be August before I finally have my final determinations on
Wow.
what my retirement and those things. So I can see myself still using you guys through the VSO to make sure that I understand that, and the things of that nature, putting you in touch with the Veterans Affairs so that you can get your medical if you need it, or things of that nature. So you guys offer a lot of service, and again, I just appreciate y'all constantly reaching out, because it has been a little overwhelming at times, but you were very understanding of the situation that I'm going through with the transition. Having done it
Sure.
yourself, you were able to give me a little grace, and I appreciate that.
Yes, sir. Really appreciate those kind words, and also really appreciate your time as we wrap it up here that you
Yep.
dedicated to us, and would definitely look forward to. You have any parting things that you would like to say, sir, to the people that getting ready to transition or they're in transition to the job? The last word's yours, sir.
I would just say, I'll tell you what a great sergeant major told me. The grass is greener on the other side. You just got to get over the fence. Okay. The fence isn't an easy fence. It's a barbed wire fence, but when you get over it, trust me, the grass is greener on the other side, and always look back over your career with fond memories. If you can do those two things, you'll enjoy retirement.
Roger that, sir. Again, really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Mission Transition, a podcast from Still Serving Veterans. Have a question, a comment, or want to share your transition story on the show? We'd love to hear from you. Send us an email, social@ssv.org.